Hey, welcome everyone. Hey, this is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insights and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards. And ladies, all my lady listeners, you will definitely want to listen to this show. Our special guest today, Dr. Nola
Easy,
Veazie.
easy,
I got it. I
easy.
got it. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. Today, we're going to be talking about a Puzzle Undone.
Undone.
So I think you guys are going to find this very interesting. And we picked this because guess what, guys? This is a title of Dr. Nola's book. Dr. Nola, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Thank you for having me. It's just an honor, especially after hearing about your own story and how you created this platform. It really warms my heart. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, gosh. And I just want to say thank you to Steve. Steve Roma, right, is his last name, because I think he's the one that connected us a while ago. Do you know Steve, right?
I don't, I meet so many different people on
Okay.
different platforms, and I was wondering, how did we connect? But I'm glad we did.
I am glad we did too, because it's taken a little bit of time. We've both been busy, and again, I'm just so grateful and blessed that you've just found some time today to be with us. And just as we were talking at the beginning of the show before we started recording, this happens to me a lot, and it's because of the energy. That's how I look at it. I feel like I've known you all my life. That
I,
connection has already been made.
I feel the same way. I
Well,
feel the
thank
same
you.
way. You're laid back and just easy to talk with and easy to listen to.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, you've got something you want to read from the book,
I
from the
do.
title we just said. What is that? Would you share that
I
with
do.
me?
I want to share the prologue of She. And this is how I even went about writing this book. It started with a poem that I wrote. And I thought, you know what? I need to do something with this. So if you will indulge me a little bit, it says, who is she? A woman saved by grace, pleasing to the eyes? Or is she a woman with not much to offer? She's old and young in her spirit, trapped and free. She's sad and joyful. The woman is me. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I formed you in your mother's womb, and your thoughts I know very well, said her maker. I infused the breath of life in you and placed in you my lamp to illuminate the secret places of your heart. Who are you? Asked her maker. The world, said she. Little does the world know who I really am. Little did I know who I was. I can give you the details of my life, the places I've been, the people I've seen. I don't know if I can tell you the reason for my being. I questioned the fairness of my life and waited patiently for a response. In the darkness of night, I hoped for a messenger to come with a special delivery in his hand, but he never came. I concluded in my mind that life isn't always fair. Life may not always be equitable, but its fairness lies in the inequality that makes me who I'm supposed to be. So many stories about me, telling of my disgrace, the man who violated, the one who left, the mother who rejected me, the sister I wish I could be. I'm glad life doesn't always end the way it begins. It offers an opportunity for change. If life negated me the opportunity for change, I still would. This story is for and about every woman. It offers you a chance to water the seed planted in you, a chance to pull the weeds that threaten to choke and kill the seed. The story of She reveals every conceivable feeling you may experience. She is a story about anger, fear, jealousy, anguish, joy, and victory. This is your story, one that highlights all of you, the good parts, the bad parts, the parts you wish you could forget, and the one you always remember. This novel will inspire you to think about your frailty and strength. Most importantly, it will remind you that life is a journey with a purpose. And that is the intro to She.
That is so powerful. You know, I have quite a few lady friends, and I have some lady friends who have gone through a lot. And as you were reading this, they were popping up in my head going, I mean, I hope that, and we'll, at the end of the show, we'll let people know where they can find your book, because I think that would be an amazing book for them to read. Because now you said it was like fictional, right? If I'm not,
It's,
but go
it's
ahead.
based on true stories. Although it's fictional, it's based on true stories.
Yes, yes, and I love that, because again, and you have probably found this in your lifetime, and also in what you do. When we're going through something, we always think we're all alone, that we're the only ones that's going through it. I mean, there's what, 80 billion people on this earth, and we just happen to be the only one that's going through it. But that's
Yes.
how our mind thinks,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think, one of the reasons to write this is that there's such a thing called the theory of universality, is that we are not in a boat alone. And this particular character, as she described herself, she says, I feel like a watermark on someone's page. And the problem is that picture was disappearing. And for women especially, men as well, but I've worked with women in particularly in my private practice before I started doing training, is that feeling as of invisibility when they've gone through trauma, especially sexual trauma. I work with a lot of women who have experienced domestic violence, who have experienced sexual trauma, and that feeling like you're disappearing. This character she's splintered into so many different parts, which is so many parts of ourselves. And the whole goal is to find reintegration. And the one way, I'm trying not to give away much of the story, is trying to reintegrate herself by number one, tapping into her spiritual self, her spirituality, who she sees her higher power as she knows him, but mostly integrate herself, the person who created her to.
Yeah.
And she had to just go through a journey. She had to go through a journey, even separating herself from herself, becoming the therapist to a woman who also was splintered, to only find out in the end that I am that woman and she is all those women. But the journey leads to integration, and I think that is the hope or the hopeful part of this whole journey. And I thought about she because as when you feel like you are a watermark on someone's page, you see yourself as a noun, she, or a name. And she is more than that. She was a puzzle that was missing a piece. And until she found that, and for a lot of women, whether you find that piece in spirituality, in self-help, however you find that piece, the important thing is to reintegrate all of it, to be the person that your higher power, for me, that's God, created me to
Yeah. You know, Nola, do you believe that I mean, I love that it's towards women, right? I mean, even though I was brought up a different way to look at women in a different way, thank goodness I have changed and looked at things so differently. However, it could almost be it's working for everyone, right? Because really, and again, this is just my version of it. We're all here. Okay, I won't say all. I would say a majority of us are here to put all these pieces together. And sometimes we are missing one and we just don't know what that is. And I think a lot of people, that's why they go to therapists or they go to a coach or different things to help them kind of find what it is that they're missing. Because my version of it, and we said this at the beginning of the show, I will continue to work on myself and build this puzzle until the day God calls me home. So I'm always going to be missing a piece. However, there are pieces that are very critical that need to be put in place as soon as possible to help us move to that next step.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, I found that in my belief of God, and finding the one who I believe, and I guess I say I believe because not everybody believes in God.
Mhm.
The one who created me, put me together, knows every part of me that is essential to carry out the mission. I'll call it the mission, and that's my background in the military that I was put here to do. I cannot do that if I am not whole. And so I sought that wholeness through the one who knew every part of me and accepted me even when they were broken. As I go on this journey, like you, I'm always going to be on a journey, not so much just finding the pieces, but helping to put the pieces together because sometimes we have the pieces, we just don't know how they fit.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And also with what you said, it was reminded me of a coworker that I used to work with. We got in some really deep spiritual stuff one day at work, and we're just real. I mean, thank goodness. So if our past boss ever hears, we were still working, however, or we were still working, but we're just really focused on spirituality, and we were talking about the message in the mirror. And I had someone ask me once, "What do you mean by the message in the mirror?" And it's by looking at yourself in the mirror. There's a message there. And sometimes it's right in front of us, yet we don't see it. And it's because we're so caught up in all the 3D BS crap that's happening around us. We're not focusing on really what we need to focus on. And our brain doesn't allow us to, right? When I was going through my training, they played a video and they were telling people, count how many times this ball is being tossed around. So our brain is so focused on watching and counting how many times this ball's being passed around. After the end of it, they go, how many saw the monkey go across stage and how many saw one of the ladies leave off stage? And I'm like, what? Wait a minute, play that again. And it's because we're so focused on one thing. And I think even with what you just read, it's also saying open our minds up, right? Let the spirituality come in because for me, again, whether those out there are believers or not, to me, my spirituality is what leads me in the direction that I need to go to get to my next point A so I can get point B and C lined up.
Absolutely. I think part of it, when I think about it, especially I think about, acceptance. And one of the chapters is called acceptance because we have to get to a place where just imagine yourself on the table with all the puzzle pieces and you've put most of them together, but they're hard pieces sometimes that you just don't know where they fit. It doesn't mean that you're not a complete person. It's just that that piece or two pieces are not aligned yet so that it makes you that whole person. You're still a person whole in some senses, but it doesn't prepare you in its entirety to do what you are called. And I think that's what keeps people from going in the direction that, for me, God intended or they might intend. And so you don't complete what you were here to complete. You're halfway because you're still trying to figure out how does that piece of me fit. And often somebody else has that. We've given that piece to somebody else, unbeknownst to us. I have given a piece of the puzzle to somebody else, whether it's in a relationship, whether it, whether it's an intimate relationship or a business relationship. We sometimes give away those or lose those. And then when we sit at the table to complete that puzzle, we find out, oh, wait a minute, there is a piece of me that's missing. But I've given it to somebody else. I've given control. I've given part of me to somebody else, and I need to take that back so that I
Yeah,
can.
that's very well put. I like how you said that because that is so true. And I know with some of my past guests, they have given away a lot of those pieces to individuals, and that's why they're where they're at in their life right now because they feel lost, right? And it's because, like you said, not on purpose, but accidentally, they've given them these pieces, not realizing that they have. Now they've realized they don't have that, and they got to bring it back to help get them to where they need to go. Because Man, too many of us, we let other individuals dictate where our life needs to go.
Absolutely. We let other individuals also dictate our relationship with God.
Yes.
Whether it's through religion, and I am for religion, and I go to religion, I go to church, but I also realize that God is not contained in a building, in a church. And it's not contained in the words that I use, because our words are limited and we cannot contain them in a word. And so when I'm passing on those words or my understanding of who I think God is to another person, I'm passing it in a container, which are my words. And so they don't experience. And this is about getting to a place where you experience God in his fullness. And that's spirituality. That's relationship, at least from the way I understand it, so that you can have a full relationship and have a piece of that puzzle to who you are and see the picture in the mirror. Or like Miller and Rolnick says, when they talk about am I, when I look into that clear pool, it's clear, so it reflects me and not somebody else.
Yeah. That is so powerful. So powerful. What prompted you to write this book and to bring in all these different stories? I mean, is it because of something that you've gone through in your life and then you found that missing piece of the puzzle and went that
Yeah,
direction?
that's part of it. But also, as a therapist, listening to so many stories, it's like, wait a minute, that's part of my story as well. Maybe by a minute part, but it is part of my story. And so I found that we share so much in common, but yet I don't fully have that piece. I need to find that piece of the story and what it means to me, that piece of the puzzle, so that I can put it. Because I, like everybody else, we've suffered some trauma. I know for me, something that was traumatic that may or may not be for other people. My biological father, I didn't grow up with him, but I had a wonderful father who was a stepfather, wonderful father. But there was still a piece of me wanting to know why. Why wasn't he there? I want to know you. And so I had to find that piece of the puzzle. I had a dream like 25 years before or 20 years before I re-encountered him and had a relationship with him, that he's going to die in the dream. And I said, but I want to know him before. And I did. The last 4 or 5 years of his life, we had just a wonderful relationship. Very important piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
It told me about that part of me. For somebody else, that may not even be a piece of the puzzle that is missing. It might be something else. But no matter what it is, how big or how small, it really, when it's missing, it feels like part of your story is missing as well. And when you find that part of the story, now you understand that picture or that story in the mirror or that person in the mirror. Now I see what the story is that she's telling me when I look at her.
Yeah.
We don't always recognize, that there's a missing piece. You just know that something is amiss, and I'm not quite sure. And I think back at the protagonist here in this story. Her name is Eve, and she says, "My name is Eve, and I bear the burden of the world, just like the first Eve. I'm like a kangaroo carrying the the issues of the world in my pouch." Men and women, we experience that, but women more so because of socialization. We're told that we are in charge of taking care of the feelings of other people. And so if you're carrying all those feelings inside of you, where are your feelings fitting in? It's often that you've given that piece of the puzzle away to other people, and so you suppress, you don't deal with it because you're carrying other people's feelings. And I thought about that and I said, even in the novel, Eve, the protagonist said, Eve, that name engenders the sins of the world. And even though it was coming out of my mind, I truly believe God was just downloading that information in me to write it. I thought about it. I said, wow, the first woman, Eve, you know, she engendered the sins because she was blamed for what Adam did. If you know the Bible story and if you believe those things. And so since then, society, we have kind of placed that on women. It's your mother's, even in psychology, it was your mother's fault if why you're the way you are because you weren't breastfed, or it was always placed on the mother. And so I thought I want to write from that perspective. I'm a woman, so I know what it feels like, but also because I know what it feels like to have a missing. Men and women, we experience the same things, but we may experience it different.
Yeah.
But even women, because of society, because of culture, we experience things different. And I wanted to bring it from the fact that to have a multifaceted approach, different people. In this case, it just happened to be women to bring it together, but it could be the same man.
Why is it that do you feel us as a society that we have to put blame on why we feel the way that we feel? You know, and I was such a huge person of that years ago, right? I shared that a little bit with you at the beginning before we started recording. I was the biggest liar and manipulator because it was all about me. And if something happened, it wasn't because of me, it's because of you. You're the reason why I threw my temper and punched a wall. You're the reason why I got in your face. You're the reason why this. And being on this journey that I've been on the last 15 years, I've really started working, and I will still continue to do it, to owning up to my own stuff. I mean, I shared a little bit of my story of what my background was, and it wasn't until January of last year before I even opened up on my own show about my cocaine and alcohol use. Here I am interviewing people, asking them to be vulnerable, and here I am keeping my own little secret. And it just, God's will that day, just how it worked out, it worked out. And matter of fact, my guest co-host ended up being the host, and she interviewed me as I shared my story. And it really opened my eyes. The person that said this to me, that told me I would make more of a powerful impact by sharing my story instead of someone else's story. And he was so right. And I did a post on my social media not too long ago that says, um, I'm not worried about anybody throwing anything at me or holding it over my head because I've already thrown it out there myself.
You took control.
I took control because if I can take accountability for my own actions, nobody else can throw, excuse my language, but I like to say it this way, no one can throw shitballs at me.
Yeah.
And however, I've noticed so much with society that we're always putting the blame on someone else's for how we feel when we have control of our own feelings. And people in the individuals in the recovery community have also really helped me with this because, right, it's all about their accountability. That's what helps them in their journey. And they have taught me a lot as well.
I think, from my perspective anyway, when I blame somebody else, it's because I don't want to see that mirror. I don't want to see that person in the mirror. I don't want to see in a clear pool. Blaming somebody else muddies the water enough that I don't have to see that part of me. When I'm ready to see that part of me, then I can take accountability. Taking accountability means that I have to look at some parts of me that are not perfect, that might maybe just really just a hot mess, and say, you know what, she's worth it, even that part of her. And I think that's what I learned and through my journey, especially when I talk about spirituality, when I finally saw that, wow, you created me, God, and you love me not as I pretend to be, but as I am.
Yeah.
And that if when we lie, when we manipulate, we're trying to create another persona that hides the person who's vulnerable. It's vulnerability that causes us to lie and to pretend. To be vulnerable means somebody else can hurt me. And I don't have the strength to take care of myself or protect myself from that.
So we
That means, oh, go ahead. No, go
no, I
ahead.
was just
You
saying,
asked really good questions.
no, I was just saying, so we believe that, right? When we really do, we do have that strength
We
to
do.
take it on.
Absolutely. But some people really believe that they do not have the strength. And so if you go back to that part of yourself who's lying or is pretending, and you have a conversation with that person, you find that that person really doesn't believe that they have the strength or what it takes to present themselves to other people. And so you give power, you give that part of the puzzle to somebody else to dictate who you are. And you're seeing who you are through the lens of their eyes, which is a mirror that's very distorted because of our own stuff. You know, I have my stuff. So when I'm looking at you, I'm looking through distorted mirrors, distorted lens, because I really don't know you. I am knowing you from my standpoint. That's not who necessarily you really are. You're just showing me a part of, I'm just showing you a part of me.
Yeah.
When I go back, I think, you know, even though this puzzle, a puzzle undone is coming out of me, it's also a part of me and it's teaching me. I think I learn through my writing because it's kind of a therapy. You know, it's therapeutic, whether I myself have gone through it or not. In these characters, I'm finding part of me. And I'm finding that, wow, I didn't go through it maybe like that, but I understand the feel and the emotion. And so what I do, I like to write in an allegorical fashion where I give voice to feelings. I have another book that I wrote called Hiding in Plain Sight. And what I've done is given the characters, I have embodied these feelings in characters. They're because we do that even in our relationship. We create, whether it's sadness, grief, anger, they become real characters that sit right beside us and take on humanity, you know, with us. And so we're interacting with them. We've given them so much power. They're another person. And in order to take that back, is I need to fit that part of the puzzle that's missing. So no longer have life that I gave you.
So many of us have to take our lives back.
Yeah.
So many of us. Because, you know, and again, going back to where we've blamed our parents have blamed their parents. In all reality, everyone has done the very best that they've known how. That's all it is. And certain beliefs have been ingrained in us from our families. And there are certain things as I've grown up said, okay, this, I'll accept this one. This, no, that's out the door now. I do not agree with this. This is how I see things. I think society, and I could be wrong, but I believe we would actually start realizing that sitting also in our own feelings and our own emotions is okay, to where we don't have to put that blame on anyone else, because I really see this whole vision now of things that I've been working on for the past 15 years and really taking a wide look at stuff, going, we are not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to feel our emotions, be sad. We're not allowed to be depressed. We're not allowed to almost even be happy. We got to put on a fake persona for everyone outside of us. And you've said it a few times in this show, we're suffering so bad inside, and we're using all this to be our happiness when it's completely backwards. We have to have this happiness inside. It's like me being my ex-wife's addiction therapist, being a certified therapist, where in some of my talks I've held up a blank page. This is my certificate. You notice it's blank, and it's because I sucked at it, because I did not know anything about addiction. So, and the forgiveness for me, even when I prayed and I fasted about it, the word forgiveness kept coming up. And I kept, for me, God is my higher power. I kept saying, Father, if you expect me to forgive her, there's no way, no way. She put me through this, she put me through that, this happened, this happened. So I'm throwing the blame out there, right? Even though I'm the one that stayed to stay by her side, I put myself in that pool. Finally, it dawned on me, it wasn't forgiving her, it was forgiving me. Because how can I forgive her if I cannot even forgive myself first? Again, that missing puzzle, that missing piece to put into that puzzle to help me get to where I can put another piece in.
That's where we are. Unless we turn the lens inward and say, you know, I am enough. For me, I had to get to a place where I knew that I was enough. And the only way I was able to get there are many paths for other people. The path I found is in my creator to say, what if you created me? I must be enough. If I look and I read the Bible, I believe in the Bible. So if you say that I'm wonderfully made, then something is wrong. Why don't I feel that way? It had nothing to do with him. It had a lot to do with what I took in here and what I took in here. Where did I get those messages? How and when did I allow somebody else to be my creator? Whether you look at social media, I'm not a very big social media fan. I'm not on social media a lot. Very seldom do I post, and usually it has to do with my work. I see people debating and arguing and getting in such they get into such arguments with each other with somebody they don't know. Why do you place so much value on what that person thinks or feels? Why do you allow that person to have the puzzle of who you are? I had to come inside to look for that because that other puzzle was really not out there. It wasn't out there. I gave things away and they're replicas. Because sometimes you take that back and if I take something you say and I really like it but then it does not really fit, it doesn't give me the image that I'm supposed to be seeing, a clear image. It's just a replica. So I needed to go where I could find the truth that fit. That's when I was able to see the true picture of who I was and accept that. But I had to accept that picture even with the missing pieces. We can't wait till it's complete. We have to be able to say, that's me. There's several pieces missing. I'm going to find those pieces, but I got to accept them.
Yeah. Again, that's part of our journey. I mean, we've talked about that here and there throughout the show. This is part of our journey, and we all have our separate journeys. You know, I was sharing with somebody yesterday, and I was saying when I first started doing this podcast, we got about 3 or 4 months in, and I went to my producer and I said, I don't know if this show's going to last very long. And he's like, why? Why would you say that? And it's like, everyone's coming on and their stories are the same. You know, they're talking about how they fell into addiction and the age is almost about the same. And it was school or it was trauma or it was this and that. And he told me, he says, Al, just keep doing them. Just keep going. You got the people coming and just keep doing it. Probably around the 7, 8 month mark, my light bulb finally went off and I went, oh my gosh, it's not the stories, Al, it's the journey. Everyone's journey is completely different. And even though we think we may be the only ones that's going through something, we're not. However, we all have our own journey looking for the answer that we need. And the answer comes in so many different ways. You and I could be looking for the same thing, Dr. Nola. However, your answer may come in a different aspect than mine will.
Yes. Yes. I think that's such an important, that aha moment that you have, it's such an important, is a key for so many people if they can see that you and I may be looking for the same thing, it's going to appear differently.
Yeah.
And it's going to come at different times when you're ready to receive it. Because if I see a piece of the puzzle, I may not recognize immediately where it fits. And I may be fiddling with it because of the veil that is in front of me. When we are going through stuff, whether it's trauma or just the daily hassles of life, sometimes we can't see clearly. And sometimes you just have to be able to step back so that you can get clarity and say, wait a minute, this has been here all along. I
Yeah.
just didn't know how to put it in.
You know, I love that you just said that, because I had a friend do a post on social media about a month ago, and it was talking about, and I know him and his lovely girlfriend, and he's talking about how women are looking for this perfect man. And he's going, ladies, you're not going to find him because you're so busy checking off all these boxes when literally the man you're really looking for is right in front of you, but you're so busy. And he goes, and it's the same for you guys. If you're looking for the perfect woman, you're never going to find them. And he started going into about his relationship with his gal, and how they have all these differences. They have these differences, but yet they feel this love for one another. And it's like allowing each other to have that space to be able to, this is their journey. Why do I need to step in and try to divert that in a different direction? Because that's not for me to do. And he says, now maybe it may be one day where I do lead that direction with her asking me to come in that way, or me saying, if you don't mind, I'd like to come in and support you with this. But he goes, we're so busy, and you just said it, we've got that veil in front of us. And there are so many times when I have gone back about connecting those dots backwards again, where I'm going, oh my gosh, my answer was right there, and I completely missed it because I was so focused on. I saw this cartoon, if I could share this really quick. I saw this cartoon years ago, back in the medieval days, 1700s. And it shows this tent, and there's this general guy, and he's out there, and they've got all these swords and spears, and they're getting ready to go to war. And there's a guy behind the tent talking to one of the soldiers. And of course, this stuff wasn't invented back in those days, but he's got a Gatling gun and he's got all these cool things. And he's like, you could win the war if you just purchase these. But he's so focused on winning the war that he's not seeing what this tool could actually do. And we do that constantly to ourselves.
Absolutely. I can think about me, having my piece of the puzzle and trying to put it in my husband's piece of the puzzle. Well, that's not going to fit, and vice versa. Our piece of the puzzle doesn't fit in somebody else's story necessarily. It may be similar, but it does not create the picture that God has for them.
Yes.
We spend so much time trying to, and as a therapist, and sometimes we fall in this trap that we have to remind ourselves, we're not there to fix anything. We're there as a person who's going on the journey with you, supporting you. My puzzle is just not going to fit in yours. My story might help you to put your piece of the puzzle together. My experience or expertise might help you to put the puzzle together, but my piece of the puzzle just won't fit.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I've gotten this from my training that I've just taken. I think sometimes we're actually carrying around that piece that we're looking for in our pocket, not realizing it's in our pocket.
Yes. Yes.
And in our training, we were taught the brain first approach. It all starts up here. And a lot of the mock training that we did, I started noticing with other people that was in the class, even with myself, I had the answer. And it was just the person who was interviewing me, giving me the proper questions to get me to think. So, and I did this with a client yesterday. I did this exact same thing with a client yesterday because she kept kind of saying the same thing. And I'm like, so to me, it sounds like, and I says, all you're wanting is to be seen. And I watched her look up to the right, and she's, right, we're looking for her answer.
Yes.
And all of a sudden she was like, yes, yes, that is all I want. So that piece was in her pocket the whole time. It just wasn't until we went so far into the session before she realized that piece was in her pocket.
It wasn't accessible to her because of the blindness. When we look at neuroscience and we look at the limbic system, which is the temporal lobe, you've heard about the amygdala. That is the alarm bell that turns on the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism for us. And it's good for us to get up and do something. It spurs us to action. Adrenaline is start flowing, noradrenaline and some other neurotransmitters are flowing so that you can get up and do something. The problem with that is that in the short run, it might be okay because it motivates you, but then it also compromises the part of the brain, which is the frontal cortex, which helps you with decision making, the executive function of the brain. So if my alarm bells are going off all the time, it's hard for me to really focus on what's in front of me and even problem solve. Maybe I see that piece of the puzzle that's missing, but I don't comprehend, I don't have access to what it really is and how it works. And you did that. As the therapist, as the counselor, you're helping her to turn this off, this amygdala that is firing off and it has you in a fight, flight, or freeze mode with enough time so that that frontal cortex can make sense. You've ever seen something and you're kind of not sure what you're seeing? Your eyes are not totally focused and then it comes into focus. That's what happens when that part of the brain is firing off. That is, it's in that, especially the fight or flight part of it. You lose focus. You can see what you're seeing in front of you, but you're not accessing understanding of what
Yeah.
And that's
Thank
why
you.
people like you, people who are in the mental health, people who are counselors, coaches, help people to access. It's not that they can't see it, they just cannot see it.
Yeah. I like to put it as they're looking at life through a straw.
Yes, yeah. You
Right.
only see a little tiny part of it.
That little teeny part, and then when you finally can get a slit in it to where you can start opening up,
Like,
then
oh, I like
your
that.
vision starts going. Yeah.
I
It's
like
crazy
that.
because maybe this is a good way of putting it too. My ex-wife years ago, gosh, I was with her 18 years, so probably 10, 11 years ago, she had some eye work done. And when her eyes finally healed, I remember we're driving down the freeway, I-15 here, and our Wasatch Mountains are just beautiful. I mean, they are literally in our backyard, right in our backyard. 30 minutes away, you're 11,000 feet up and on top of a mountain. And I remember her looking out the passenger window going, I never realized how beautiful our mountains.
Beautiful.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What? You've lived here all your life. But it's because of how her vision was, right? It's not no fault of her own. It's just that
Exactly.
how her vision was. And this is what we do to ourselves with having good vision.
Yes, yes. That's our natural vision, but we also have our intellectual, our spiritual vision that we're able to see so far, but there's so many nuances around what is happening that we miss. And I think going back to addiction, especially a person who's suffering from addiction, who's in the throes of addiction, they're seeing through that straw. All they can see is I'm hurting and I need to feel good. They can't see that there are other things out here that might help them. I only see this one thing that helped me. That's what I'm going to pursue. We are all in pursuit of feeling good. But when that becomes the end goal, we miss life. We miss life. And part of life is sometimes feeling bad. It won't kill you.
No, it won't.
It won't kill you.
And to accept it. I mean, really, why is it that it's so bad to have a bad day? Why is it
Exactly.
so bad I mean, I don't know, about 4 or 5 months ago or so, I went through like a depression type thing, and I remember my mom even saying, "I'm worried about you. Are you okay?" And I'm like, just allow me to go what I need to go through." And even myself, I'm like, why am I still going through this? I mean, a week had passed. And then all of a sudden one day I just woke up. I woke, which was a Sunday, which was crazy. I woke up on a Sunday one morning and went, I'm good.
Fine.
I'm okay now. I don't know what changed in me. It was me just allowing that process to happen. I was off and running again.
We don't allow people though to go through that. And I can speak for myself. If I have you as a friend or you're a family member, I don't want to see you hurt. Somehow, somewhere, I learned that people shouldn't hurt. And so we're desperately trying for them not to hurt, that we contribute to whether it's addiction or any other maladaptive behavior because we want to salvage you, want to take you out of that. And the one thing we learn as therapists is to just sit through that journey with the person while they're hurting. That's the most difficult thing to do is to sit and see a person go through pain.
Yeah. I got to share a story with you, and I've shared it before on the show a number of times. And the reason why is because I believe it's very valuable. I had a guest on my show out of Colorado about 2 years ago, Janessa Brewer, lovely woman, does coaching. And during our interview, she goes, I want to share something that my 6-year-old daughter taught me. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, my daughter is afraid of thunder. So she goes, a storm's coming in, lightning and thunder. It's really loud. I look over and my daughter is in the corner with her blanket and she's over there just bawling. And I'm telling her, stop your crying. The thunder is not going to hurt you. You don't need to do this every time. So she's basically telling her daughter not to feel her feelings, right? Her daughter at age 6 looked at her and said, Mommy, this is my sad time and allow me to have my sad time. And she goes, my daughter taught me such a valuable lesson that day.
Yes.
And she goes, however much time went down the road, they're out on their porch. There's a storm coming from the distance. You can hear thunder happening out there. It's not as loud because it hasn't approached yet. And she looked over her daughter. She could see her daughter looking that direction. She goes, would you like to sit on mommy's lap and have your sad time? And she goes, yes. And she jumped up on her mom's lap and she snuggled with her mom. She taught her mom such a valuable lesson because she allowed her daughter to go through her feelings and her emotions instead of shutting them down. Because we continue to do
Yes.
that, we end up learning to not allow ourselves. God gave us all these emotions for a reason. They're there for a purpose. Why is it that we do everything we can to tell people not to feel them? I don't
I think that's
understand.
partially cultural because I travel a lot. Myself, I was born and raised in Central America where you can express your emotions. People are very, emotive. Um, but then you get into certain cultures where it's not okay, or around certain people and it's not okay. And because of the feedback that they give you, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, you learn that certain things are not okay. But I think we're getting there. We're getting into a society where people feel a little freer, especially the younger generation. Our generation, though, we were told you don't, you know, just suck it up.
Yeah.
Grab yourself by the boot, suck it up and do, so you were not allowed to feel. But we have a new generation that they're just, they're feeling what they feel,
Yeah.
whether we agree with it or not. They're feeling and they're dealing. And my thought is, you know what? The same God who created me created them. If he can deal with me and take me to where I need to be, he can do it for them. I don't need to be the Holy Spirit for them.
Amen.
I am not their God.
Yeah.
And just accept them where people are. so that they can come to where they need to be, because I wasn't always here. And I think for me, as I get older, I realize it, you weren't always where you are right now. It was a journey, and somebody could have halted that journey, whether it's because I gave them permission to and stopped there, or they forced it. But thank God it didn't happen and I got here. So why would I stop somebody else's journey?
Yeah.
It's not for me to agree or disagree with it, but I do have permission to feel the way I feel about it. And I tell people all the time. And some therapists, especially with drug and alcohol, who have a very strong spiritual background and belief, and they may not believe something else their clients, a lifestyle or a thought pattern. And I said that you have a right to your feelings. What you don't have a right to is to protect them and impose them on the other person. But you do have a right to your feelings. You don't have to compromise that.
Yeah, and I do my best not to use this word because I don't like shoulding on people, but yeah, you definitely should allow them to go in whichever direction you go, and that's something I'm still even working on for myself
Yeah.
because I've been doing it all my life, and I'm working my butt off to get away from that, and it takes time because I've been programmed for a lot of years. And now
Yeah.
I've got to I gotta work on unplugging that neuron and plugging into a healthier one so I can do a little better.
I think we all are on that journey.
Yeah.
We just get to, as you get older, you just get to acceptance, a little bit more acceptance, grace with yourself. You just don't know it all. You're just never going to be perfect as somebody else's perfection.
Yep. Amen to that. And to kind of go back even to, because you just said we don't understand other people's journeys and their feelings, even though we are always there to lead them in a different direction and correct, like we know exactly what it is that they're going through. And something that really opened my eyes when I started doing this show is in the addiction part of things. I'd go downtown Salt Lake, and I'd see the unsheltered and the alcoholics and the drug addicts down there, and I'd be in my car going by, man, why don't you get your crap together? Come on, man. There's people that are hiring over here. There's jobs over there. You don't need to do this. And I start doing this show, and I start interviewing people from all over UK, Canada, the US, and I start hearing their stories. And I learned very, very quickly, we don't understand what people have gone through in their life. And now it's the stigma is so big, especially around alcoholics and drug addicts, and even the unsheltered. A lot of these people, there's something that they're battling with that we don't understand. We just see what we see. It's like, and this just came to me. It's like if you get a box and you put horse manure in the box, and then you wrap it up all nice and pretty and put a bow on it. We see a pretty box with a bow, and we think what's inside has got to be something very special.
Mhm.
It's not.
Ah,
Open it up and it's not.
yes.
And it's these are things that so many individuals are going through. And I just want people to understand too, have a little bit more empathy towards individuals. Now, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Nola, you work with a lot of veterans, correct?
Well, my company is a service disabled veteran-owned business. We work primarily in the prisons. We have contracts
Okay.
with the state of California, the Department of Correction. There are veterans in there as well, and other people who are non-veterans. But the people who I work with are mostly have addiction themselves. Coming, they're on their journey or they're in recovery, but many are now drug and alcohol counselors who are helping others, not just the civilians, but also inmates people who are incarcerated, people who have been incarcerated for 40 years. And as I hear their story and understand, and yes, they've done some really, really bad things, but it doesn't continue to define them as they grow. And I'm not saying that everybody in prison is growing and it's going to be great. There's some people that, decide not to change. That's a decision that people make. But some who decide to change, who decide to help others, especially on their journey for recovery, and I hear their story, it really helps me to understand that we have to have voice. Doesn't mean that you should not pay for what you've done. I understand the victim's plight. I understand their pain. I've had someone who was murdered in my family. And so I understand that, but I also understand that people can change. And people who are in the throes of addiction make decisions they would not make if their frontal cortex was online, meaning working to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's like looking through a straw. I just need what I need. And as a consequence, I'm going to engage in behaviors that hurt them. But I learned grace from that and learned from people I never thought I would learn from, because I also had this, you should be in jail, you should do, because you made a mistake or you committed a crime or you did something heinous, you should never get out. No grace, no compassion, no empathy till I was in there. Especially when I go to those level four, high level prisons, and you see people who, have done some really, really bad things, who have changed their mind, changed their lives. They know they have to pay the consequences. They're okay with being there, but they also can offer something to society. Whether there's other prisoners coming in there or through their radio shows that they have in prison regarding addiction and regarding compassion for others, so that they can change. Because not everybody in prison is there because they did something horrendous. They might have done something stupid and they're in there for a year or two. But sometimes they're in there with others, who have done really, really bad things. But those who have been there can help. And I always talk to people about that. You can change another person's life just by sharing what you've learned, not just your story, but what you've learned as a consequence.
Yes.
If we don't learn anything, then our story is just that, a story.
That's what's so amazing about doing a podcast, because to have people come on and share what they do, all it takes is one person. And I don't know how many guests have come on and said, Al, if I can just change one person's life, it was all worth it, because we cannot see the ripple effect down the road, right? It's like a tsunami. It starts out with a very small wave, hundreds of miles out in the ocean, thousands of miles out in the ocean, but by the time it reaches the shore, it's huge. And the work that you're doing, other individuals inside the prisons that are doing to go out and help other individuals, their reach is going so much further that they don't even realize.
It is. I love what I do. I know my husband was really afraid of me going in because I'm going into level 4 prisons and stuff. And yeah, it's scary. Things happen in there. But the satisfaction I have when I leave, that one person, I remember one gentleman, he came in and said, I don't want to be here. We have guards in the room with us as I'm training. I'm training about trauma informed. Didn't want to be there. But I said something, and I don't know for the life of me what it is that resonated with him. He says, I don't know what it is about you, but I'm going to stay. And we stayed throughout the training, and he participated. He volunteered for me to do an exercise we call sculpting to address some of the trauma that he suffered. And to see that person who somebody outside would say, oh my God, that's a scary dude, on the floor crying because of the hurt and he saw as a child.
Wow.
Some of the things that you hear, and all they do is replicate that pain and inflict it on others. People get out of prison. Some people get out of prison, and we want the best version of them. And so that's why it's so important to do what I do and to do what other counselors who are working in the prison to do what they do. It's not easy for them. I just go in as a consultant and train, but there are people in there in the prison who are working day after day with inmates who are going through their own journey toward recovery.
Helping them find those missing pieces.
Finding that missing piece of the puzzle, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, we have come up just about on an hour. It goes by so quick.
Oh,
I mean, it's crazy because you know, I could sit here with at least another hour or 2 hours, if not longer, and chat with you. What what would you say to all our women listeners out there to go back? She's a puzzle undone. What is something that you could share with them that you think just might resonate with them to help them on their journey?
your piece, you might see it reflected in others, but they don't have the piece that completes you. Whether it's a relationship with someone else, no matter what the relation is, they do not have your piece of the puzzle. You have to look inside of your creator. He put that piece in. And if you don't believe that, then look for that piece inside what you have. What's inside of you already, that's the second thing I would say is don't give away of your puzzle because you're trying to complete somebody else's. So we often give our pieces in order to complete somebody else. And like you said earlier, you gave a lot of you away from your wife who you love, your ex-wife. And that's what we do. That's what love is about. In our minds, that is not love. Love is being able to sit as they go through the pain of finding their puzzle, missing part of their puzzle. Not to take away their pain by giving them a piece of us, because then we are incomplete as well.
That's powerful. I mean, that is really powerful, both of those. Because again, I asked for it to go towards the women. Again, if you open your mind, it's for everyone. You know, I'm sitting over here on the other side with just goosebumps on both arms because again, that resonated with me so much because we do that as loved ones, especially with other individuals that we do care about, whether it's our child or our spouse or a really good friend, aunt, uncle, who knows? And you know, we're giving away. I mean, it's okay to give someone some strength, I think, but we cannot give away our all of our strength. We just cannot because now then we've lost something.
It's good to give support. It's good to help with strength, but we cannot give away an essential part of us because then we will be free. I really want to thank you because I didn't know what we were going to be talking about. And you said choose out of these, but you really, you didn't change my mind. You really opened my eyes, and that's where people can help each other. Is that you open my eyes to see that maybe this sheet of Puzzle Undone was the topic today. I really appreciate it because it also did something for me. I got to go back. I'm always exploring self-exploration and say, wow, that really resonated with me. And I need to see the piece of the puzzle that I was looking for that is now complete. It's a picture that tells me where I need to, who I need to help. And all my life, I love working with women. I did that in the military for a while. I worked in mental health and I had women's groups. And it just resonates. I like working with people, period. But I find that that particular niche, I have a special part in my heart for working with. And you today, I'm glad that you actually chose She a Puzzle. You actually chose it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So saying that, how can people find your books?
So you can find my books on Amazon. Some bookstores sell it, but the best way to get it is on Amazon. This is a She a Puzzle Undone. It's hard to see. and it's coming out on Audible. We're doing some tweaks. My books, I've been putting them on Audible now, so you're going to be able to find that on Audible, on Amazon, on iTunes. Within the next 2 weeks, you'll see She a Puzzle Undone on Audible. In the meantime, you can get a copy, the ebook or the hard copy on Amazon.
That is cool. And you have another one too called Relapse Prevention, The Dawn
I
of
have
Sobriety.
yes, I have, especially in the addiction field, relapse prevention. And what this booklet, it's a small book just to help you, whether you're getting it for yourself to help you navigate relapse or you're a counselor. It uses an integrated approach using motivational interviewing and other techniques to help people as they embark on that journey to relapse, but also to recognize the signs when they are going back down the road of relapse. Because relapse does not happen in one context or in one moment. It is a journey, just like your journey to recovery, there's a journey backwards to relapse. I have several books out there, but you can just put my name in there, Nola Veazie, and you will see all my books on Amazon.
I love it. And they can find you on LinkedIn too, because that's how you and I have been communicating is through LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn, or also on Alignable. There's a lot of people on Alignable. I have founded several groups on Alignable, including a veteran-owned small business group. So find me there, the Black-owned business. We have 38,000 members on that one. So you can find me on, I'm not on any other social media, but definitely LinkedIn.
Okay, I love it. Dr. Nola, thank you so much for taking time. Again, I've got a new friend. I mean, I love you already. You're an amazing individual, an amazing person. Thank you. I'm gonna see my emotions kick in. Thank you for doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing work. Thank you also for your service and all that you've done. And again, just thank you for your time. I really do appreciate you.
I appreciate you and what you do, especially knowing your story and how you have used your gift, your God-given gift, and that piece of the puzzle to help other people find the puzzle. You may not put it that way, but that's what you do.
Thank you.
And that AR back there is emblazoned in me. That's the logo right there.
All right. I think I just might take you up on that.
So.
Since you're about the third person that has said that. So I guess I'll just have to keep this logo for my coaching and because it does fall into the crisis and recovery as well.
Just there's something about that logo is even more than the initials. It's just, I don't know where you got even how you put that together, but one initial is embracing the other. I don't know if you noticed that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One initial is embracing the other. Recovery is embracing addiction.
I love it. I never thought of it that way, but that is very well put. Yes.
That's the logo. I love it. I wish I had something like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And gosh, guys, thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to all our past sponsors, all our past guests. Again, guys, I say this at the end of every show because it is true. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for you. You guys are the ones that are making this show a success to keep it going. I mean, over 3 years. Thank you. I love and appreciate every single one of you. And if you know someone that's looking for some help, that's in a crisis or battling with someone that's battling addiction, or even a family member that has a loved one, please reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and chat with you. And please look for Dr. Nola's books. I mean, she's got some great books. So get on Amazon and check out her books and help her out, because you guys heard her today on the show. She's an amazing lady and has a lot of great information that she can share. We're going to leave you with this, as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out. Oop, just a second. I hit the wrong button, folks.